I think that being honest with people, especially when you're dealing with business, and being genuine is non-negotiable.
Main Street businesses are struggling as they face challenges nothing like we've seen before. You're listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. Let's learn from real-world Main Street entrepreneurs, pick their brains, and learn their secrets to navigate, persevere, and overcome all the modern obstacles they face every day. Get ready to peek behind the stories, the struggles, and strategies of today's Main Street entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Behind Main Street podcast. Here's your host, Chris J. Cardona.
Great day, everyone. Welcome to the show. Whether it's your first time listening or an avid follower, thank you so much for joining us. Show notes can be found at www.behindmainstreet.com. But before we get started, I would like to thank the sponsor for this episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com.
For today's episode, I'm very excited to interview a good friend, Dave Harrison, a retired sheriff's deputy, a dad, a husband, and the founder and executive director of Paws for Success, a non-profit he and his wife started after retiring that focuses on helping enhance individuals with disability, such as mental health and PTSD, through the service dogs they train and provide, as well as their programs that promote mental health wellness to support this community. Dave, are you ready to take us behind the curtains and dig into your story?
Of course, Chris. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Bring out the shovels. Let's dig for gold.
Well, Dave, I've given our listeners a little bit of a sneak peek of who you are. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
You know what? I'm just an average guy that cares about its community members and wants to get involved. We're a local nonprofit located in the heart of Chino Hills. Like you said, we train service dogs, but service dogs are just a small aspect of what we do. As we started to get more involved in our community and started to help our clients, we realized that, the dogs are similar to like a smoke detector or smoke alarm. And when that goes off, you've got to have the tools and the wherewithal to get out of that situation. So, we very much focus on programs that help those individuals have those tools in their toolbox so that they can cope with the things that they're dealing with.
Awesome. Well, personally, tell me a little bit of something interesting that your family or friends would probably say about you.
You know what? I think they would say that I'm probably busier than I need to be. And that I put a lot on my plate, but I enjoy it. And you know what? I am able to do it because I've got a wife that supports me and kids that are always, there to support me also.
Well, how would you describe your mission in life?
I think my mission in life is just to do the best that I can. I always tried to keep in the back of my mind that, whatever I did in life, whatever actions I did, I wanted my kids to be able to respect what I was putting forth.
Gotcha. Well, what would you say commonly people misunderstand about Mr. Dave Harrison?
I think the biggest misconception would be that I have everything all together. And I think I faced that challenge with even my family. I always say like, hey, Dave, you've got everything together. You've got the perfect family. You've got this, you've got that. Seems like everything just goes smoothly for you. And that's not the truth. I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't have a hiccup or an insecurity or something that they've got to face themselves.
Definitely. Well, if there was one thing that you would say that you value most in life, what would you say that would be?
I think it's work ethic and family values. For me, I think that you've got to give 110% of yourself whenever you're trying something new or whenever you're doing even mundane things. just put the best you forward, and always remember that your family is the most important.
Have you thought about the impact that you will have in 5 years or so?
I hope that in 5 years from now that, we've grown, and that it's not just myself, that it's a community that's coming together, and putting forth the effort and growing this community that we have at our facility. And it's just grows outside the state and across the country.
Now I'm curious, if you won $100 million tomorrow, what would you then spend it on?
Well, I think I would definitely take my family on a vacation, my wife on a second honeymoon. My best friend, Chris, we'd go tour the mango cart facility. And I think a lot of it would just go back into the community.
Gotcha. Well, what would you say your childhood was like when you were growing up?
I had an amazing childhood. My parents sent me to private school. They were very involved in our activities. For us, it was Boy Scouts and going camping, and for being out in the community and giving back. My parents were always supportive and always pushed us to do the best that we could. So I was really fortunate.
When you were growing up, then did you have a dream career or a job? I know you come from law enforcement. Was that something that you looked forward to when you were growing up, or was this like what you're doing now? Both are very meaningful, but it's completely different, different ways, right? Which did you have a specific dream job when you were a kid?
Yes. So I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and in the den, they had this big leather orange chair, and it was a recliner. And I would sit there every afternoon, and I would watch Emergency, and then I would watch Chips. And I knew I wanted to do something. I thought, being a firefighter would be really cool. But I thought being a policeman would be fun because they rode around on motorcycles. But I knew I wanted to do something where I could give back to the community.
Did you like school when at all, or do you have any favorite or least favorite subjects at that?
I think I've always enjoyed English, and I had a teacher at a young age that really promoted that, and would have me keep a journal, and she would give me topics, and she'd have me write stories behind it, or just different creative writing skills. So I really enjoyed English. I think my least favorite subject would be math. Just not. You and I both. I can balance my checkbook, but
important.
Anything past that, I lean on my wife to figure it out.
Was there something, when you look back in your childhood, right, that you feel sort of led you to where you are today?
I think I was always raised in an environment where you thought about your community, and you always had some way to give back, and that you were always connecting with people. And so I remember in the holiday time always going caroling at senior centers and doing stuff like that with our family. So I think my parents really instilled in us to give back.
Absolutely. Well, you coming from, law enforcement, right? You growing up, watching Chips, watching all these shows and looking at that as a way to be able to be of service to the community, right? Being able to give back your time, your effort, and your life pretty much. And, we appreciate you doing that. What would you say was that like, and what was a turning point in your life that sort of led you to, starting a nonprofit today? Was it something that you saw in your field of work and things of that nature? Tell us a little bit more about that.
It was something that was maybe a little bit more abrupt. I had to retire medically. So it wasn't something I was like, hey, in 5 years, let's do this, or, let's slowly transition. I was faced with having to medically retire, and that was huge for me to try and figure out a new identity. I think for myself, it was a big deal to be a deputy, and it's hard to turn off. And, sometimes that affects you on a personal level with your family and friendships. So when I had to retire, I had to figure out who's David Harrison, really kind of think about who I was and where I wanted to go. And I also am the type of person that likes to stay active. So I had to find something to do. And I was about a month before my retirement date happened. And I talked to my wife. I said, I've got to start thinking about something because, I'm not the type of guy to sit around in Bermuda shorts and, sandals and watch life go by on the porch. It's not going to work. And we actually started a for-profit detection business, utilizing dogs to find explosives, firearms, and narcotics. And through that journey, we saw that there was a need for dogs in the community, specifically service dogs and detection dogs in schools. But, there's such a gap between the cost of it, what it costs, and what people can afford. And so, I kicked around the idea of putting a nonprofit together, and some people said, "Oh, you can't do it." And so I just kind of put it off to the side. And then situation came about where I met somebody who was asking a lot of questions about a service dog and was trying to figure it out himself. And I was like, what, we could help. We could do better. So I called some people and we threw a board together, and we haven't looked back.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I've gone, the chance to see the progress that you guys have made in the community, and it's been amazing to see the effects of the stuff that you guys are doing out there within the community. And I didn't realize that it was a transition. It seemed like for you it was it seemed like an easy transition, but it wasn't, right? Like you coming off from what you were doing, you probably thought that, hey, like this is what I'm going to be doing for a foreseeable future, giving your life, protecting us and, doing all the stuff that you were doing as a police officer, and then being able to transition into what it is that you're doing now. What would you say now that you're doing what you're doing now, more so outside of the, law enforcement, you're very connected to the local business, local community, local residents, and things of that nature. What would you say that being part of the Main Street community means to you?
When I hear Main Street, I think of Disneyland, right? First thing you see when you walk onto Disneyland is Main Street, and you look all the way down, and you'll see that the streets are lined. It's where everybody wants to go. It's where the buzz is. It's what connects every part of Disneyland to itself. If that makes sense. So you've got Fantasyland and I'm probably the worst person to talk about Disneyland, but you've got all the different little zones there, but they're all connected through the heart, which is Main Street. And for me, Main Street is what connects all of us. You don't have to always agree with everybody, but having that human connection and that and opening yourself up to other people's ideas, to me, that's what Main Street is. Definitely.
Well, what was being an entrepreneur? Before you had this nonprofit, you said that you started a for-profit detection business, right? Was being an entrepreneur on your radar when you were a child?
Not necessarily. I've always enjoyed puzzles and problem solving. And I really, through the sheriff's department, you learn how to be a leader, but you don't necessarily learn how to be a business owner. There's two different aspects. And for me, that's been an interesting challenge. When you're a deputy, people respect you because you're a deputy. That's just kind of given for the most part, right? But as an entrepreneur, nobody knows you from anybody else, and you really have to work to earn their trust and earn your place in the community.
Well, when did you first, become interested or decided that, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
Like I said, just prior to retiring, I had actually checked out different companies that were doing what I wanted to do. And I put in some applications, talked to some business owners. And really, I just thought it was pretty piss poor attitudes that a lot of them had. They either were really, really big and I could never get anybody on the phone. It was very cold and corporate, or, there was the, this is the way I do things and take it or leave it, and just very, very gruff. And I thought, what, there's got to be a better way of doing things. There's got to be some customer service here. And that's what spurred me to open my own business. I told my wife, I said, I think we could do better. There's got to be a human element here. You've got to treat people with dignity and respect. And I'll admit that I've not always done that. And I think that's what I've taken away from life. And that's what pushes me now to try and be the best version of myself with everybody that I come in contact with.
You're right about that. I mean, one of the things that a lot of us, this being an entrepreneur, it's not something like, it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey to bettering yourself, figuring out the most efficient, best way to achieve something, to do something, because we're out here kind of trying things, risking things. And lots of times, like for you, I would assume nonprofit founders like yourself are not often thought of as entrepreneurs. But in my eyes, you are, right? I mean, you did, but now that you become a nonprofit, like people think, oh, you're a nonprofit founder. It's different, but you are, because you risk your time, your own money, and your effort to create or try to create a successful organization. And you partner with like-minded donors to, make people's lives better. And that's the essence of what being an entrepreneur is. Was there, would you say, a specific entrepreneur influence in your life?
I think so. And, I've always had the mindset that you can learn something from anybody, and I referenced that toolbox. You can take something away from a person that you really think doesn't have a lot of common sense. And, in some respects, you're taking away not treating somebody that way. You can see somebody that's got really bad customer service and you're still taking something away and you're bettering yourself. But I've been fortunate being a part of the chamber. I've met amazing people that I've been able to learn from, and community members. And, you're a person that I've learned a lot from and respect. And, the way that you look at things with such excitement, and you will immediately figure out, you may have 10 clients, but you treat them all like they're number one. And anytime that I come to you with a harebrained idea, at 11 o'clock at night on a holiday, you're, hey, let's introduce this person. Let's get this business involved. Let's start doing this. Let's start doing that. You're always about collaborating, and it's never about yourself. It's always about bringing in people from the community and creating a bond where you may not necessarily see it outright. Craig in the community from Thinking Local, and just the way that he looks at things, and he's very calm and methodical. And it doesn't seem like he makes a decision without having, thought it out 10 steps ahead. And he's a phenomenal mentor to me. And Mary Jane from Pet Wants, and the way that she engages with people, and she's always excited to hear about what they have to say. And she brings that enthusiasm to it, and you got Jay Perez, who's a entrepreneur and is always out there plugging away. And, if he hits a wall, he gets right back up and he keeps going. And the list can go on and on and on. And that's what I love about this community, is that there's so much to learn from everybody out here, and nobody's holding these like they're great secrets, close to their chest, and they don't want anybody to know what their secret is. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out in the community that are just starting and in the same place as I am, and they're honest. Like, hey, Dave, I may be struggling because, I'm having an issue with this. And being honest and open and vulnerable, that's huge, because then it allows me to say, like, yes, like, I'm having these issues too, because I never thought that I was an entrepreneur. I thought, hey, I'm just going out there and helping the community, and, never really thought of it as a business. I see a need in the community. I see a way that I can help. If I can get people to support me, great. If not, I'm still going to do what I need to do to help those that, like, I think I can really, benefit from what I've got to do. But through the partnerships and the friendships that I've developed in the community, I started to look at things like, I am an entrepreneur. This is a business. It's not the smartest thing, because when you do a business, you've got something to sell. I don't have something to sell. what I have is myself, and people are truly investing in myself. So if I don't carry myself and I don't put our organization in the best path, then people aren't going to invest in me to do the best that I can, or to invest in our staff to perform. So it's a little different. If I was making, I don't know, fly swatters and I had a really great product, it's easier. I've got something tangible. But this, I've got an idea that I'm selling to you, and a dream. And, it's every day. It's like getting out there and going to, I don't know, one of those little crowdfunding things, hey, look, invest in me. So, I really had to think about it. And yes, we are a business, but really I'm asking people to invest in me. So I've got to really polish myself and carry myself a different way and really put the product out there. And, we better perform, because I'm asking you to give I'm taking food off at your table to provide a service for a complete stranger. So I also have to perform, and people have high expectations. So it's not like, if the fly swatter breaks, they can bring it back to me and get a new one. It doesn't work that way. It's all reputation based.
Definitely. And I appreciate you mentioning me on one of those people that have been, working with you and has influenced you a little bit. But, for me, I've learned a lot from you. The friendship that we've developed, meeting you through the chamber, being able to collaborate on different things, as well as, a lot of the folks that you mentioned. I think the good thing about us is we're able to collaborate, right? We're sort of like coworkers working on different projects, running different departments, having different job descriptions, but we're coworkers. We're coworkers for the community, and our work is to make our community better. And I think your recipe for being able to do that is very, very important. So, I appreciate you for doing whatever it is that you are doing. Oh, hold on. I'm going to give, sorry.
This is good.
Yeah. So like I said, thank you so much for, putting me in one of those people that had influenced you. And I think you're a big part of the influence in the community as well. Everything that you're doing in this space, in our local community, is making a difference. And that's why I'm so excited about having you on the podcast is, Main Street for me is really the backbone of what it is, what society is all about. This is where small businesses, small organizations like yourself and mine will eventually grow into something bigger. But having the connectedness in the community is something that we should never forget and should never leave behind, because without the community, without the people behind Main Street, there really won't be any successful America or any parts of the world, right? Through this journey, you transitioning from being a peace officer to going into your for-profit business and transitioning into your into your nonprofit now, what have been some of the challenges that you have faced from the time that you started your nonprofit? Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge for myself personally is the challenge that every nonprofit has. I'm not good at asking people for help. That's just not what I've done. I'm not good at voicing my emotions. My opinion, yes. My emotions, not so much. That's just not the way that I was raised, or the industry that I came from. I was always raised, and being law enforcement, you are that support for other people. When there's an issue, they call on you, and you fix it, and then you move on and you fix the next issue, and the next issue, and the next issue. But where does all that baggage go? It goes towards you. It sticks to you. Sorry, and I'm digressing a little bit. But for me, I'm not good at asking for help. So to ask for donations and ask for sponsorships, I'm not good at it. I'm horrible. I don't like asking for money. So it's kind of asinine to have a nonprofit and not ask for money. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And I'm really trying to figure out how to do that without directly coming out and saying, hey, we need money. So that's, for me, doing partnerships and figuring out a way to, show our value in the community and the other businesses out in the community. That's the angle that I've taken.
Most definitely. And, in life and in business, tying back to what you're saying, what would you consider non-negotiable for you?
I think our values. Oh, I know our values, I think that being honest with people, especially when you're dealing with business, and being genuine is non-negotiable. If you don't believe in what we're doing or who we are, or you want to change something that, doesn't fall in line with our morals or our values, then, I'm good. Take your money and you can find another organization. So I think you really have to set those boundaries and not let anybody push them around. And I think this community, doesn't want to do that, and I've been fortunate to deal with a lot of really good people. And I think you surround yourself with people that have those same values and those same ethics, and all the businesses that I mentioned were all small businesses. Why? That's another question that we should be asking. So why are small businesses the ones out here that are making those connections? It's one thing to be a big business and to be a sponsor and to throw money. That's all great, but it doesn't make a connection. It doesn't show your value in the community, nor does it show the value of the community that you're supposed to be serving. So, for us, those small businesses have been, phenomenal for us. And we've had small business owners that may not be able to afford giving us $100, $50, $25, $10,000, take $10,000 too. But they've brought their families to our facility and they volunteered. And for me, that means more to me than the money, because you're truly investing what's valuable, your time and your family.
Thank you for sharing that. What would you say throughout your journey? What would you wish that you knew prior to either becoming a nonprofit founder or an entrepreneur?
Oh, I wish I knew where the pot of gold was at the end of the rainbow.
I think we all do.
I wish I would have known just some of the basic fundamentals of business, the basic fundamentals of marketing. I don't think that you need to be a wizard at everything, or even anything, because I think passion is what shines through. And as long as you're willing to, get back up when you get knocked on your ass and keep plugging away, and you're honest with people and you're genuine, and, you're really out here to make what I call friendships. We can all make connections, right? We've all seen it. We go places and you can see the person walks in the room and they've got 10 business cards in their hand, and they go and they're like, business card, business card, business card, business card. And they already know where the exit is and they're out. They made 10 connections. That's great. I'm not a business card collector. You know what? Your number comes to me, it goes in my phone, and I'm going to reach out to you and we're going to develop a friendship. So, I think for myself, being an entrepreneur, I think if I would have just known maybe a little bit of the basics of business and to be a better communicator, that would have really helped out in the beginning.
Gotcha. What would you say has been throughout this time, what has been the most important part of your entrepreneurial journey?
I've learned so much about myself and who I am. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. You really got to get out of your own way to be an entrepreneur. Like, I think if I looked at who I was 10 years ago to who I am today, I look at that person, and that person was confident, but it was a false confidence. I don't necessarily think I was a horrible person there, but I think I'm probably a lot more genuine now. And the connections that I make now, I make them because I value that other person, and I value listening. I've really learned how to listen. And I think that's how good entrepreneurs will grow. You walk into a room and that person that's sitting there just blah, 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 blah. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Most people get turned off, Listen, if that person would have just stopped and listened to everybody else in the room, they'd probably walk away with a lot of business. It's those connections, right? Our organization is in this community, but we live just outside of it. But since we've been in this community, we have changed everything over to this community. Why? Because you know what? I've developed those relationships. So, my insurance guy, I have a personal relationship with him now. I don't just get on the computer and get a quote. It's a little bit more expensive, and I'm okay with that because I have that personal connection, Financial advisor, same thing. And our dog food company, like for us, that is important to us.
So if you could have one superpower, what would it be? But before you answer that, let's take a quick break from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com. And we're back. Digging for gold on the Behind Main Street podcast.
So, Dave, if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
It would be the ability to not be so expressive in my face.
Poker face?
I think that's maybe a poker face. Yes, my wife will sometimes nudge me and say, babe, we can all tell what you're thinking right now. You need to not have that face. Like when you give me ideas, Chris, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
It's okay. We're mostly talking on the phone, so I don't get to see the face as much.
Oh, yes. And I think the ability to make people forget some of the things that I've said that may have been hurtful or made them feel less than valuable. So I think that'd probably be my superpower.
That's a good one. I've never heard that before. I think, although, that might be something that it makes us, if we're able to take back some of the things that we say, some of the things we do, it makes us feel better. But I think overall, whatever you said that hurt someone, probably if they took it the positive way, or they took it as a means for to step on and step up, I think we all do things that, we all hear things from other people that we don't agree with or hurt us and things of that nature. But a lot of times, if we just took the time to think about it, it could really make us better people. And I think for us, you included, I'm sure that's something that you've experienced, where you've taken something that's not very flattering that someone else is saying about you or things that you're doing and made something better of yourself because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I do. Like when I showed up for this interview and you told me to put a shirt on.
Exactly. Not for me. It's for our listeners and for the people that are going to view this video and all that. So just, it's for them. And mostly for your wife too, for Nicole.
Yeah.
Well, in your opinion, what is one crucial personality trait that an entrepreneur or a nonprofit founder needs to have success?
Don't take yourself too serious.
Wow.
You go to events and everybody's like, "Oh, I just love what you're doing," and you're so great. And depending on what room you're walking into, they think you walk on water. And that's not the case. I'm just one person that's connecting a group of individuals that are making amazing things happen here. Without our clients and their courage to step forward and say, you know what, I need help and I'm willing to make a change in my life, it wouldn't matter that I'm sitting here on a ranch waiting for anybody. Nobody would show up, So don't take yourself too serious. I still sit down to put my pants on, and I wear boots because I can't tie my shoes and keep them, tied. It's that's what I would say.
Well, what would you consider in your time as an entrepreneur, a nonprofit founder? What would you consider your biggest failure, and what did that teach you?
My biggest failure would be the fact that I'm too hard on myself. And in the beginning, I would always set myself up for failure. So I'd go into a meeting and I thought, let me expose all my flaws so that I'm the one putting them out on the table. I'm the one that's, it's a way of guarding or protecting yourself without guarding or protecting yourself. And I think that's probably the biggest flaw that I learned in the beginning. And I've had several mentors say like, hey, like, don't say those things. They may or may not be true, but you know what? Like, don't put yourself down to try and make yourself more exposed or to try and, get their trust, because who's going to choose somebody that's like, oh, you don't want to go with me. I don't know how to train a dog, regardless if that's the case or not. Like, I'm still trying to sell myself. So I need to have confidence in myself. So biggest flaw would be lack of confidence.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of us have these limiting beliefs that we always have to overcome. I always, and we do have people around us, especially the closest people around us. And for you, it probably is your kids and your wife, Nicole. For me, it's my wife and, also my kids and my mom. They kind of tell us, like, tell it to us as it is, right? Like, my wife would always call me out like, hey, you're doing all these things for these other businesses and other people. How come your own content is not there? Why haven't you posted anything on your business page? Why, like all that stuff. And for me, it's like being called out, I make an excuse like, well, because, I'm busy working, for other people. But that's why for me, I started this podcast so that I could be able to document some of the relationships, some of the experiences that I've been able to learn from like people like yourself and some of the other business people that have been fortunate enough to interview on this podcast and hopefully interview in the near future, because there's a lot of conversations that we would have offline that a lot of times some of those information you don't get to remember, right? But now I can always listen to this podcast and hear what you're trying to teach me out there as we go through our relationship and all of that. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
No, I'm grateful for you to give me the opportunity. And, I'll yell it from the rooftops. I think that you're an amazing marketing strategist, and I've learned so much from you. And I think it's just amazing the community that you've built and the community that you're part of. And, you've always given everybody in the community a voice, and you've always given them a voice over yours. And I think that's what I've learned. And humility is huge. And I think, I know that you've given me that, that outlook on things and really had to change some of my own perspectives. It's not always about me. It's about learning to listen to other people. So, when I do that at home, it's because of you. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And that probably comes from my wife reminding me, not all me.
and I think that's brings up a good point as far as entrepreneurship. You may be the person out in the forefront that represents your organization or your business, or you're the one that's making the cold calls or knocking on doors or, going to meetings and mixers and network things. And holy smokes, it's like always got something going on. But, you look at it like my wife reminded me in the beginning, she's like, you're doing all these things, but you forget that like there's two parts of you. There's a part at home and there's a part at work. And I'm able to do those things at work because she picks up the slack at home. And so, as entrepreneurs, we need to really remember or be conscious that, we have support groups that are there for us and allow us to be the people that we are in business. And that we also have to remember that they're just as important, and there is an intricate part of this. I couldn't have done all these things without the volunteers, without the board that supports me, without my wife, without my kids. And I'm just a very small part of this business that's on the outside, but the inner workings are on the inside.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Nicole, That's for Dave, and shout out to my wife. We're definitely the champions at home.
Yeah.
Well, if touching back on that, is there someone or something that you turn to on those times that you start, feel stuck a little bit?
I don't think there's necessarily one individual that I call. And I'm sure you're in the same boat. You probably have a group of people. I think you're part of like the dad bods or something like that.
We're the founding members.
Yes. But there's a group of individuals that I can call, and my brother's one of them. He's an entrepreneur himself. And even though he's not part of this community, he also understands the struggles, and he's not in the same industry, but getting his opinion about, certain things and maybe how he would address it. And his clientele is different than mine. But I think getting the opinion of people that you respect, and really listening, I like to surround myself with people that don't necessarily agree with what I do. We may have the same fundamentals, but we look at things very differently, so that I can really gauge like the best outcome. Because if you surround yourself with yes people, you're fooling yourself. You just get the same damn answer that, you could have just spoke to yourself in the mirror. So how are you going to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say drives you to sort of keep going when the going gets tough?
I don't like failure. And I don't like not being able to contribute. So for me, if I meet somebody and, maybe to a fault sometimes, because I've also learned that not everybody wants you to solve their problems. That's where that whole listening thing comes in. If I see a problem, it's like, let's try and fix it. How do we resolve this? So, that's the drive for me, is to always try and do better, to learn something, to grow, to help other people.
Is there any specific resources that kind of gets you, that has helped you kind of get through some of those struggles?
As crazy as the internet is, I Google all sorts of things, and I try and read articles. If it's got to do with computer stuff, I call my kids, or I call you, right? Like I'm not tech savvy at all, but if it's just a simple business matter, or how do I do something, I'll Google it and I'll read 2 or 3 different articles so that I can compare them and figure out how to do it. Or, I'll call somebody on that resource list, that I've got in my head, and say, hey, I've got this issue, or, I'm trying to do this. Have you ever come across something like this? And, sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they're like, no, but let me connect you with so-and-so who does. So my network is always growing. And I think it's because I've allowed myself to be vulnerable and tell people that, I don't know what I'm doing at sometimes. Not that it's not obvious, but people are willing to help you if you're willing to accept it.
Absolutely. Is there a big aha moment for you in life?
I think when you go through life and you stumble enough times, and you keep doing the same things because you're stubborn, and finally you're like, okay, like I need to just slow down. I need to trust that I don't know everything, and, opening yourself up to doing different things. And I'm still working on that. I think that's probably the big aha moment, but a very specific time, I've done so many things that probably were not the smartest, that, I'm not sure exactly which one comes to mind right now.
Well, then, if you can talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give 18-year-old Dave?
Oof. Okay. So, as when I got a little older as a deputy, I always told the young ones to take $100 and put it in the back of your locker every week and save it in an envelope that only you knew about, so that you had it there, and you weren't tempted to withdraw some money when you needed to go and get Christmas gifts, or you needed to go out for the evening or something like that. Start thinking about your future. At 18 years old, I didn't really think about that. I was more interested in figuring out how to manipulate my freedom and have more fun, and more focused on relationships and that type of nonsense. So I think I would tell myself to take a deep breath and, just be patient. Like think of the long game. Invest in my future, because I'm going to have one, and it'll be a lot easier if I think about it at 18 years old.
That's great advice.
And stay in school. I mean,
that's great advice. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Now that you're running your nonprofit, what would you say is a go-to hack, like productivity hack that you do? Because like you said earlier, you have a lot of stuff on your plate, right? Dealing with your family, dealing with your donors, your clients, and just people that show up at your facility out of the blue. What would you say is your go-to productivity hack for kind of keeping things moving?
I don't know if it's a hack. When you say hack, I always think of my 4-year-old. He's always like, goes in the kitchen. I'm going to teach you a life hack. I'm going to teach you all sorts of little things. Yeah. But for me, it's my calendar app. Just through my email. It's not very fancy or glamorous, but I had a training officer that would always tell me the key to success is organization. And that's always stuck to me. And I've always tried to be somewhat organized, but having a calendar and keeping things straight, and being able to manage your time wisely, I think that's probably the biggest thing, and then it doesn't always work. You and I thought we had a meeting ahead of this and it's actually tomorrow. And I also thought I had a phone call right before this, and it's Thursday. So it's like, you also have to be able to use your calendar and be able to type things the right way so that you could be productive. But I think for me, being organized and having our team that's organized so that everybody knows what their roles are and where they're going to be. And, being the executive director doesn't mean that I can just go off willy-nilly and do what I want. Like, my staff knows what my calendar is and where I am. And I'm accountable to them so that if they need something, I'm there for them too.
That's absolutely great advice. And that's advice for me personally as well. I have a crazy schedule as well. I'm trying to juggle different things. I try to make everybody a priority, but at some point it's hard, right? It's really hard. And being even technology, like the problem with technology is it hasn't gotten to a point where it can just follow us, right? And just kind of write everything. Like if our calendars were pre-filled, like it would pre-fill itself kind of thing. But no, we have to make the conscious effort to actually put something in our calendar. And sometimes, with all the craziness that's happening, we do tend to forget, some things. So I guess that's the humanity in us.
Yes. I couldn't figure out why the person was 15 minutes late today until I went back to the email and figured out it's Thursday. So
that's probably why. It's a great reason for him or her to be late.
Yes. So.
Well, if you were granted 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
I would wish that people would actually start to listen to each other. There's no benefit for standing on a soapbox. That's absolutely ridiculous. You have something, like I said, you have something to learn from everybody out there. And I don't care who it is, there's probably some type of common ground with that person. So I think the ability for people to open themselves up and listen to others would be my number 1. For number 2, I think that I wish that there was more compassion out there. We hear all the time that we need to be nice to each other and we need to do this and we need to do that. And, it's all lip service if you're not actually putting it forth. And it gets frustrating. Just for me, it's like, just save your comment. I'm more of an action type person. So I think if we could just be compassionate towards each other, the world would be a lot better. And number 3, I think, that I would be able to manage my time better so that I would actually be able to have quality time with my family. So, I worked in a career where I was always gone, and sad fact is that was my focus. If I wasn't at work, I wanted to be at work, because what if something happened to somebody, that one of my partners, and I wasn't there? It's silly to think that if I was there, it was going to change the outcome of, something traumatic happening, that somebody wasn't going to get hurt because I was there. Like, I'm not Superman, right? I don't have those superpowers. So I missed out on a lot of things with my family and really my kids that I can't get back. So, I try to have boundaries now and to set time aside for my kids, because really that's what's most important. Like, sitting here working hard and trying to say that I want my kids to respect the decisions they make and the things that I do for the community. But if they're not here if I'm not there to take an interest in their life and show them that I care and love about them and tell them I love them and get a hug every once in a while, then this is all for nothing. It's more lip service, So,
well,
that's my 3.
Well, those are great wishes, and then those wishes are very telling to our listeners and to the viewers of this video about who you are, right? All the 3 wishes that you gave were all about society, or what effects of, what you are and where you lead your life and how it affects other people. And that's very telling. And, thank you for thinking about it in that sense. And I really, really appreciate your answer. Can you recommend 3 specific books for our audience that you've read that has helped you?
Well, I'm not a huge book reader. I'll be honest with that.
Or shows?
I have a very short attention span, but, I would say the Bible. The Bible's a book that I think I know from my own life that it gives me guidance and helps me to try and figure things out. So there's one book.
Which is consisted of a ton of other books within one big book.
So there's my 3 books. There you go.
More than 3. It depends if you include the Old and New Testament in there.
Yeah, and it's not to say that I've read the Bible from front to back and have it all memorized, because that's not. Yes, I try.
Absolutely. Well, what are you looking most forward to? Your future as a nonprofit founder or as an entrepreneur?
I look forward to the next generation, and I think that by doing that, it keeps me from being short-sighted. The other day, my son, who's 4, we were doing something, and he goes, "Dad, when I get older, I'm going to work at Paws."
Wow.
And I said, "That's awesome, buddy." And he says, "But you're going to go to work with me every day, right? So we can play." And I said, "You know what? That's perfect." And, he loves coming to this place, and he loves helping people, and he loves working with the dogs. And he goes a little overboard. He tries to get his sisters to sit and stay like their dogs. But, to see his enthusiasm and to see our trainer, Ben, and see what he's doing and how he's growing and the volunteers here, or, that next generation, and to see what they can do and how they can take this momentum that we've started and really make it a movement and carry it into the future is exciting.
Fantastic. Is there something or a question that you wish I had asked you that I didn't?
No, Chris, you're a great host. You're perfect. No, I don't. No, I think the thought process and what you've put into this podcast and this show and what you're trying to bring out in people is great, and I hope that there's young entrepreneurs out there that take something, at least something, away from each and every person that you've interviewed, because, we all have something, to give back. I think that if you go into a situation and are so naive to think that you know it all, or that I'm like, oh, great, I could do this, and then you get out here and you're like, holy smokes, this is nothing like I thought. Like, I thought, like, hey, we do service dogs, and everybody's like, oh, that's so great. Here you go. Here's a bunch of checks. No, it doesn't work that way. Somebody should have wrote a book on that. That's not how it works. You know, and to get that younger generation, like, find people that know something that you don't, and attach yourself to them and ask them questions, and, you know, give your feedback, because we have just as much to learn from you that you may learn from us. And that's, you know, not saying that I'm anybody's mentor, but like, there's so much, there's got to be that give and take back and forth. So I hope that one day they put this out there to, you know, some of the business classes that are out there, so that they can listen to this and take some stuff away. Because I think that this is a valuable tool to new entrepreneurs, and also some of those business owners that have been out there for a long time that need to, like, you know, get some of the dust off and start becoming really truly involved in the community, and really truly supporting small businesses. Because, you know, we hear a lot about supporting veterans and homeless and small businesses, and we hear a lot about it. So, you know, this is a great way to start a movement, so that we start actually doing stuff.
That's wonderful advice. Where can listeners learn more about you and Paws for Success?
So our listeners can go to www.paws4success.org. Go to our website, and, you know, learn about us. You can send us an email, ask questions, contact us by phone. You know, if you're in the Chino Hills area and you want to come down and tour the facility or volunteer, we would love it. If you want to, you know, get more involved and maybe sponsor a dog for a community member that really needs that help, you know, that's a great way to give back and to be involved in the changing of somebody's life that, you know, you don't know.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for everything that you do for our community and for giving me and our listeners your time today. I invite our listeners to please connect with Dave from Paws for Success, myself included. Also, please do share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. I'd very much appreciate your honest feedback, which helps me continually provide impactful content that I hope you will find valuable. And remember, every day that you face adversity, think of it as an opportunity to find the gold inside you. Until next time, have a success-filled day.
Thanks for listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Remember to visit www.behindmainstreet.com.